Every morning, it's such a blessing to be with you. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Apparently, breaking news. We've got Wilbur Ross. He's getting the boot. I liked old Wilbur. He is the Commerce Secretary. He's got to go because of the census defeat. Don't cross the boss. Boom. He's out. Now, the president, now this is a good move, and his administration moving to end asylum protections for most Central American migrants in America. We'll have more on those stories as well. A lot going on here today. There's no reason not to have a compelling, hard-hitting show that services the entire Treasure Valley. We've got the ice raids going on. We've got something called the Grand Fondo that happened over the weekend. It's so funny that it was a bike race, and Lance Armstrong's in town, Kristen Armstrong obviously in town, and they did an 80-mile ride, right? 80-mile ride, and Lance Armstrong continuing to try and rehabilitate himself after the disaster that was his Tour de France victories and everything else. Now, this is a little off the beaten track, and I won't go too far on this, but we are a community that prides itself on loving God, talking about God, faith-based community. Is it possible to have a second act in America? And the second act in America being Lance Armstrong. Remember, we all loved Lance Armstrong because he was the best ever. He won. He beat cancer. He beat the French. He was invulnerable. Then we found out that Lance Armstrong was a cheater. And not only that, but this is what happens with a lot of people that can dish it out and they don't take it. In fact, my soon-to-be 10th anniversary here, if that happens next month, I've learned to take it a lot. And maybe the older we get in life, that's why we get patience, we get empathy. We learn to take things that 20 years ago, I'd hit you with so many lefts, you'd be begging for a right. Not anymore. So Lance Armstrong was a mean, vindictive person. Lance Armstrong did not make himself available to the local media. He talked to Channel 7 because they, stalked him during his podcast. And instead of saying, Lance, you want to apologize? Lance, they asked him about Boise and how to pronounce Boise. Oh, yeah, that's a serious issue, Boise. How to pronounce Boise. And no disrespect to the folks at Channel 7. Look, the unwritten rule is if you want access to these people, you don't ask them tough questions. That's just how it is. That's the world that we live in today. Right? So here you have Lance Armstrong coming to the Treasure Valley, and nobody really says anything. It's a good thing. Well, Lance Armstrong's disgraced. He was sued, and Lance Armstrong was one of the, and I believe there's a Netflix documentary or it's on Amazon Prime about just what type of guy he was. Greg LeMond, who won the Tour de France, didn't use a hyperbolic chamber, didn't do anything else. Remember Greg LeMond back in the day? And if you don't, Greg LeMond was such a hardcore competitor. I can't believe I'm talking biking, but it doesn't have anything to do with biking. It has to do with the type of world we want to live in. He was shot while hunting inadvertently with a shotgun. So there were pellets everywhere. The guy rode and won with pellets. So Greg LeMond, they asked him once about Lance Armstrong. It's like people ask you about your rival or your coworkers, right? And Greg LeMond just told the truth. Like when people say to me when I go out in public, which is very rare, hey, how about Slappy and McGillicuddy? Well, Slappy and McGillicuddy work somewhere else, and they're a direct competitor. How would you like it if I talked about your direct competitor? Well, it's not the same. Yes, it is. So Lance Armstrong threatened to sue Greg LeMond, threatened to run people out of business. In fact, what he did was he would threaten to sue. He would sue people, I believe, and just make sure that they kept a lid on things. And he's in town, and all that we can do is ask him about the pronunciation of Boise. Now, on the other hand, you might say, Kevin Miller, get a life. It's time for a second act in America. Maybe it is. I just thought it was odd that here you have this person here. Nobody talked about how disgraced he was, which is interesting because contrary to what Donald Trump, everything Donald Trump does, that controversial speech the 4th of July, he was supporting the military. That's controversial in America today? So, the immigration crackdown continues. It's starting. See, what the president did is he did the old rope-a-dope. I'm going to deport all the illegals. He's not deporting anybody. Maybe a few. But he has everybody up in arms. He's the center of attention. Somebody will write a book about how brilliantly the president has manipulated not only the traditional media, but the social media folks. Right? This is a brilliant manipulation pattern by the president, and it really solidifies his base. We could say, look, he's deporting people, and they're against him. So from the Associated Press, this is, again, I don't know if we should call this the Faith Hour or whatever you want to call it, but as a nationwide crackdown loomed, religious leaders across the country used their pulpits Sunday to quell concerns in immigrant communities and spring into action to help those potentially threatened by the operation. Now, when you go to church, regardless of what your church is, first of all, it's supposed to be politically free. I hate when people bring politics to the pulpit, right? I'm here to learn about the Lord Jesus Christ. I'm not here to learn about your political views. So now you have, and this has been going on in Chicago for quite some time and across the country, most notably within the Catholic Church. Full disclosure, I'm a practicing Catholic. But here you go. A Chicago priest talked during his homily, which is like when the priest comes down, he talks to you about the meanings of the readings, about the compassion of a border activist accused of harboring illegal immigrants, while another church advertised a deportation defense workshop. Dozens of churches in Houston and Los Angeles offered sanctuary to anyone afraid of being arrested. In Miami, activists handed out flyers outside churches to help immigrants know their rights in case of an arrest. Now, remember, there has been not a program, not a host in the country that has been pro-enforcement of immigration laws than yours truly, at it for almost 25 years. We will go to Washington, once again, brought to you by our friends at FAIR that pay for the mission, to hear what's really going on in the country, and probably run into Canyon County Sheriff Kieran Donahue, Congressman Fulcher, Congressman Simpson, Senator Risch, Senator Crapo, and others, and we do that because we care about this issue, right? So can you imagine a church, any church, harboring murderers and criminals? So you have churches across the country, and again, it's not like many people are going to be rounded up. Personally, to me, if you break, I mean, look, it's like you commit a misdemeanor, a felony, and you don't show up for court. Sooner or later, whether it's Dog the Bounty Hunter or somebody else, they're going to get you. But here's the skinny on this. Quote, we're living in a time where the law may permit the government to do certain things, but that doesn't necessarily make it right. Reverend John, some Polish last name that I can't pronounce, on St. Clara Montefilaco Church in Chicago. 1,000-member congregation, 90% Hispanic, mostly immigrant. Just because you're Hispanic, just because you're an immigrant does not mean you're an illegal. The media tries to lump everybody in together. But here you have churches deciding to disobey the law and equating, isn't it funny how we equate everything? And by the way, you can join the conversation. I'd love to hear from you at any time at 580-5436, 580-KIDO with Kevin Miller in the morning. You're listening to KIDO Talk Radio, 107.5 FM, 580 AM. But isn't it funny how everything relates to the civil rights movement? And is America perfect? No. Okay, but we had the gay marriage movement. First it was civil unions, then it was gay marriage, and now it's whatever. That was the new civil rights movement. Now we have the civil rights movement on human growth hormone, not even steroids, when you're looking at giving health benefits to people that aren't citizens, when you're giving in-state tuition to people here that aren't citizens, when you're looking at all these other things. And you're going, Kevin, where's your compassion? Well, okay, who's going to pay for it? I mean, we're overtaxed already. We have people saying, Kevin Miller, we can't afford Social Security for the Americans, Medicare for the Americans, Medicaid for the Americans. And yet you have some people saying, we're not going to deport anybody.
Don't open the door. If you get in touch with them, they don't have the right to open your door. So if they knock your door, just don't open, and that's it.
580-5436, 580-KIDO. Think about this, though. When you're looking at this, situation, the president's saying these folks are going, only 2,000 when you have millions here, and yet you have so much unrest and everything else. I just don't understand it. What type of country do we want to live in? And then you have presidential candidates that are so heck bent on getting elected that they just sit back and say to themselves, well, this is horrific. Really? What is so horrific about enforcing the laws and keeping America where it is? You have Nancy Pelosi saying the president wants to keep America white again. So if everybody is not taking the higher ground, who's to blame? 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Rolling on the right side, Kevin Miller in the morning at KIDO Talk Radio. Phone numbers 580-5436, 580-KIDO. So recently, the President of the United States. Now, the good thing about this area, or as the media-savvy people call it, a market, which is made up of population and the media entities that serve it. Well, the good thing about our area is that the media market is not centered on the Twitter. And you hear Twitter all the time. I tweet this, I tweet that. Twitter has to be the most self-indulgent, non-servicing tool ever invented. But in this market, there's maybe 10% of the people that are on Twitter. So if you ever want to know what President Trump is up to, you just go on Twitter. And the crazy thing about this is like 3 a.m, the president's tweeting. Or the president has somebody tweeting for him, right? So over the weekend, the president says to 4 freshman congresswomen, and it's the usual suspects of, in my opinion, the Hate America crowd. Rashida Tlaib of Michigan, Ilhan Omar of Minnesota, a Somali refugee and U.S. citizen from Minnesota, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez of New York, and Ayanna Pressley of Massachusetts says, if you don't like America, go back to the bleepity-bleep countries where you were born or where you're from, which, again, they're all Americans. But, again, the president, in his brilliance, has got people talking about him. Let's take a listen.
This morning, after a presidential tweet, his opponents are blasting as ignorant and hateful.
It is absolutely racist and un-American.
The president is a sick man.
Right now, we have a racist president who is demeaning female members of the House of Representatives based on the color of their skin and their cultural heritage.
It started when the president, on Sunday, referenced progressive Democrat congresswomen who, he says, originally came from countries whose governments are a complete and total catastrophe. The president then suggested they go back and help fix the totally broken and crime-infested places from which they came, then come back and show us how it is done. He's seeming to single out the so-called squad of freshman progressives, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Ilhan Omar, Ayanna Pressley, and Rashida Tlaib. Only Congresswoman Omar was born outside the country in Somalia. All 4 are U.S. citizens, and all 4 are women of color. Ocasio-Cortez firing back, tweeting, "You are angry because you can't conceive of an America that includes us." And in the words of Pressley, "This is what racism looks like," she writes. "We are what democracy looks like, and we're not going anywhere." While the president appeared to be trying to exploit the divide between the 4 progressive women and House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, after days of infighting, his tweet may have done the opposite, unifying Democrats against him. Speaker Pelosi tweeting the president's plan to make America great again has always been about making America white again.
And there we have it. Let's get your reaction. Tom in Nampa with Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Tom.
Good morning, Kevin. I'd just like to point out that the ICE raids are going after people who entered this country illegally, were tagged, told, appear in court, we'll review your case. They appeared in court, their case was reviewed, and they were found, no, you don't make criteria for refugee status. Please leave our country as soon as possible. They didn't leave. They were essentially out on bail, and they skipped bail. They jumped bail. Now, strangely enough, that's considered illegal. They're supposed to be picked up and deported to their country of origin, okay? If they want to resubmit and come into the country legally, that's fine. They are perfectly, free to do that. Why is it that this is judged wrong? If I jumped bail for, let's make the liberals happy. Let's say I was tagged with a gun crime, possession of a unregistered automatic weapon. That'll make the liberals happy. And I jumped bail, and the FBI, ATF, whoever comes after me, and some place decided I should have sanctuary, I don't think the liberals would be real happy with that. What's your opinion?
There's a clear double standard, like with this STAR card where we have to go be stuffed, cuffed, and get probed, and yet we're giving licenses to the illegals who have no verification. They just come in and they, get whatever they want.
Well, you got to remember, I'm a 3-time loser anyway. White, male, and heterosexual. So, I'm premeditated guilty.
Now, wait a minute, Tom. You had a good run, as did I. We all had good runs. Our era is over. James Bond is now a black woman.
Another franchise killed by political correctness.
Yeah.
First Star Wars, now.
See, you picked up on that. When they turned Luke into a woman, I said, nope, I'm done. I'm done. I'm done.
Yes, let's sacrifice a great saga on the altar of political correctness so we can hoist our virtue flags even higher.
When the voice of the Force became female, and I've got nothing against women, we all love them, but I knew what was going on there. Social engineering.
And it's worked out so well, every place it's ever been tried.
Sure.
Why is, there's nothing wrong with this. Let's fix it.
Tom, God bless. You had a good run, buddy.
Yep. You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Traffic and weather together. Kevin Miller in the morning. KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Dave. Back to your phone calls. Let's go to Harvey. Now, you're calling from Nevada. Is that true, Harvey?
Yeah, I am, actually.
Well, welcome.
So I was sitting there, I was listening to what you were saying about the racism stuff. And, the people that cry racism the most are the most racist. And that makes me sick.
Harvey?
Yeah.
Keep going there. You're in and out, and I don't know if you're near Area 51, but continue, please.
Oh, sorry. I had to turn my swather off.
No worries. Go ahead.
But it just makes me sick. I mean, I've experienced racism most of my life. And to hear these people crying around about, oh, you're racist if you do this, you're racist if you do that, it makes no sense. You're the racist ones for calling everybody else racist. And we need to fix that.
Well, we are living in a different world, and the president seems to be our best hope at changing the narrative, bringing it back on the right course.
Well, that makes tons of sense. I'm a Trump supporter. I'm a Black American. I work every day, and I don't take no free stuff. Nothing.
Well, what do you make of James Bond being a woman?
That's a bad idea.
Well,
James Bond is not a woman. James Bond is a dude. I've been watching James Bond since I was a kid. He's just going to completely screw up the story.
Indeed. Well, you coming to Idaho, or are you just driving around Nevada?
Oh, I live right here on the Oregon-Nevada state line.
Well, you need to call in every day.
I could.
Well,
I listen to you every day.
Thank you. Now, do you listen on the radio or the app, or how do you listen?
I listen on the radio in my walker every morning.
Well, that's great to know that we get to where you are.
Well, I appreciate everything you're doing, and there's been a couple times I wanted to call in, but I've been a coward. And today, you really got a subject going that really touched me. And I was like, I'm going to say something.
Well, you call in any time, Harvey.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Kevin Miller, and I appreciate what you're doing for our country, and I hope more people jump on the bandwagon and get straight.
Yes, sir. Take care, Harvey.
You have a nice one.
You too. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Maggie. Well, that's what I get for assuming. John Decker joins us now from the White House. That's right, the very White House right here on KIDO Talk Radio, 107.5 FM, 580 AM. Good morning, Mr. Decker.
Hey, how are you doing today, Kevin?
Man, this might be one of the busiest weeks the president has ever had on Twitter.
I don't know. I've never really, compared one week to the other. They all seem to run together, and lots of tweets coming from the president. Certainly the ones in which he's gone after four progressives in the Democratic Party in the House have gotten a lot of attention, and the president not backing down from those tweets. The president, in fact, doubling down on what he wrote on Twitter over the weekend. One tweet in which he suggested that these four congresswomen should go back to the crime-infested countries from which they came has been condemned as racist by many Democratic lawmakers, and so that's gotten obviously a lot of attention over the past 24 hours.
Indeed, and it continues to get attention when we're thinking about it's odd because politically these four freshmen were at odds with Nancy Pelosi. Now she's come to their defense, the president calling for an apology. It's a lot of drama, and yet we've had some real news lately as well in the White House concerning staffing.
Well, the staffing issue that you're referring to is the announcement on Friday that Alex Acosta, the Labor Secretary, announced that he's leaving the administration. That's effective this Friday. That's after so much bad press concerning that lenient plea deal that he presided over while he was U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of Florida. That just got too much to bear, and as a result, he submitted his resignation to the president. The president accepted, and then come Friday, when Mr. Acosta leaves the administration, there will be three individuals with the word acting in front of their title serving as the head of three cabinet positions. So that's obviously something the president needs to think about in terms of replacing each of these individuals.
Indeed, and a lot of people were making hay about that over the weekend on some of the Sunday shows, particularly when it comes to the Department of Defense and some other cabinet positions. Can the president just continue on with acting, John?
Well, in some cases, no. And the reason being is because of federal law, which means that you cannot serve in an acting capacity for an indefinite period of time. So the president will need to find replacements for these three agencies, the Department of Homeland Security, the Pentagon, and come Friday when Mr. Acosta leaves his position, also the Labor Department. So lots of work in terms of vetting for these individuals, and then, of course, the confirmation process for whoever the president ultimately chooses to replace or name individuals that will serve in full-time capacities leading those respective departments.
John Decker joining us from the White House, Fox News Radio on KIDO Talk Radio. Have you had time to speak with the new press secretary, very different from Sarah Sanders? Will we ever have another briefing? Maybe we've had one and we missed it.
No, you haven't had a briefing since Stephanie Grisham's come on board. I know Stephanie quite well. I've known her for quite a few years. But I do not anticipate any change in the president's plans in terms of having briefings. As you know, for quite some time, we've only had, I think, 2 White House press briefings in all of 2019. I don't see that changing anytime soon.
John Decker, usually it's a slow time of year. Do you expect it to be slow, or could we see more fun?
Well, it's never slow when the president has access to Twitter, right? So
yes,
he's
sir.
always active, even when he's on vacation or away for the weekend, or it's the weekend. So there's never really a slow time. There typically was, with the president's predecessors. That was typically, the last few weeks in August. But even if the president decides to take that time off, you can certainly bet that he'll be tweeting during that time off.
John Decker, we appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day, Kevin. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Our great friend, John Decker. Mike in Boise, thank you for your patience. You're on KIDO Talk Radio.
Oh, hi, Kevin. Good morning.
Good morning.
Hey, now I see why that Beater wants facial recognition. Today, I opened up my Boise City utility billing bill, and normally it used to be, because I haven't had a roommate in 5 years, and I got them to get it back down to $55 every other month. It's bi-monthly. Today's bill is $82.
Wow.
You know what? That's a bunch of crap. That's a lot of money.
Thank you, Mayor Beater.
You know what? That's ridiculous. I mean, with so many more people in this valley, the prices ought to be dropping, you'd think. I know that's a laugh.
It was a good one.
Oh, shoot. That guy, I hope to shout he never runs for governor. Oh, I'll be up there with picket signs.
Well, do you think he'll get reelected?
I hope not. He's a socialist. Totally. But don't forget, socialism works really great in Venezuela. Not. But you know what? I'm totally on board with our great president. AOC, Tlaib, Omar, Pelosi, they all need to spend 1 year as peasants in Cuba and see how life really is.
That'd be great.
You wouldn't it? Hey, thank you. God bless all of you. God bless America. Thank you. Bye-bye.
God bless you. There, Mike in Boise. Not an overwhelming endorsement of Boise Mayor Dave Beater. Joining us now, Tea Party Bob, GemStatePatriot.com, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, sir. You're on the air. Go ahead, please.
Good morning, Mr. Miller. How are you? Interesting comments here this morning on the immigration issue. I'd like to know what happened to the rule of law in our country. There was a time when you committed a crime, you did the time. Nowadays, if you do the crime by illegally entering the country, you get a free driver's license, health care, and assistance from social service. Last month when I went to renew my driver's license, they wouldn't issue me a Star card because I was missing a second utility bill, even though I had my birth certificate, passport, one utility bill, and a previous driver's license. So I actually had to come back a couple of weeks later with all of the information again and pay an additional $15.
Now, here's my question. If you don't have utility bills, will they accept something else?
No, I haven't tried.
The utility bills are in my wife's name, so they're not in my name.
Well, then you have a problem. You may not be able to get another license.
Well, I guess I won't be leaving the country then, or leaving America. I'll just I guess I could renew my passport and say the heck with a Star card, because you could use your passport to get on a plane.
Well, go to Mexico. You can get a driver's license down there, can't you?
Which is interesting because you've brought up a great point. This is how the devious little libs are going to get away with it. So if you're here illegally, and there are states on the West Coast and everywhere else, you can go get a driver's license. Then I'm thinking, well, if you have to have a Star card to get on a plane, no, you don't. You just have to have a passport. Well, yep. I guess if they're here illegally, they could have a passport from their country of origin. Mm-hmm. So this whole rigmarole of making us go through this stupid thing, you didn't have a second utility bill, and they said, sorry, you're a United States veteran, you served in Vietnam, you've worked for this country, you love this country, you've been a patriot. Sorry, you're going to have to go because we don't believe you. What kind of garbage is that?
Well, look, we have a broken system in our country. When it comes to immigration, and, we all know that it has to not only be reformed but enforced. America has been on a dangerous path for the past 30 years by not enforcing our immigration laws. And eventually this will be the downfall of the country, as every time we don't like something that we have a rule for and try to enforce that, there's going to be protests by the left, and the new majority of immigrants will change the rules they don't like and eventually change our laws to fit their needs. The illegal immigration problem is the fault of the greed of big business who have been trying to open the floodgates of cheap labor for way too many years. We're on our way to a tipping point where the immigrants will be the swing vote in the country, and that is when it will all change. And believe me, that day is not very far into the future if we continue on this path. Trump's trying to stick to the rule of law with this roundup. It's perfectly legal, and as he's going about this to get the most egregious criminals who have already had their day in court, whom did not even show up for their hearings in many cases. All this protesting by the left is a bunch of baloney and politically motivated. We all know that. Trump's the only president that has been willing to do something about the growing problem and has become a target of all the left criticism. We need to support the president in his roundup, and we might as well just forget about the rule of law and open our borders if he doesn't do things like this, because they're going to come in here and they're going to fleece the honest, hardworking citizens of this country who don't seem to have a say anymore about what goes on here. If Trump does not win this next election, you can look forward to more illegal.
Where are you going to move if Trump doesn't win this election?
I don't know. This is about as far away as I could get from where I don't want to be. I just don't know where you go. I don't. I mean, it's all over. It's a problem that has permeated.
You're going to say you had a good run, little buddy.
Yes, indeed. But, look, I'm 74. You're a lot younger than me, so you have many, many more years to put up with it than I do.
Well, yeah, I suppose.
So I think it's up to the younger people. Just like I said, we need younger people in the legislature. We need those in their 40s and 50s, and we need to change the rules so they can be there. And we need to start voting them in and stop having these cronies run this country and this state. God only knows we could change it if we just get the right people in office. This has been our problem for years.
Tea Party Bob, the Gem State Patriot. We'll see you this week.
Yes, indeed. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it, my friend.
No, thank you.
Have a good day.
We'll quickly go to Bob in Caldwell. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Bob.
Top of the morning to you, Kevin. I was in a conversation with somebody the other day that's been president of this Boise Bible College for a couple of decades, and we're talking about this far-left, extreme communist, socialist, Stalinistic group that's trying to wreck the company. And he said, Bob, take a deep breath. He said, this is so simple to distinguish the difference between this group and normal God-fearing patriots like you and I. I said, what is it? He said, well, you and I know who our deity is, God, the Lord Jesus Christ. And he said, theirs is themselves. They got a couple co-pilots, Lucifer and Satan. It's no more complicated than that. So you got to make a choice of which deity you're going to be part of. There isn't any middle ground. Water's wet or it isn't, one of the two. And I thought, I wish we could just get that crystal clear to everybody, because if they were going to the voting booth and they thought about that and they understood that they were voting for Satan, it might cause them to think. I'm not sure it would, but it's really not more complicated than that. So my message today is brief, but that's it.
God bless, Bob. Thank you for the call.
Talk to you later. Bye.
Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio.
That I get criticized for all the time. It's not what you think, so don't don't gasp. It is that I am anti-American because I criticize the United States, and I believe, as an immigrant, I probably love this country more than anyone that is naturally born, and because I am ashamed of it continuing to live in its hypocrisy, that I work so hard to make sure.
By the way, this is Ilhan Omar. The president, as you just heard, is telling her she was born in Somalia, and the other four that were born in America, they should be apologizing to him. This is from the liberal, wacky, zany Netroots Nation conference, where all the bloggers and cloggers and joggers get together to denounce, in my opinion, the United States of America. So Omar, all of 28, 29, came to this country when she was 13, I believe, has been elected to a position, the highest, one of the highest in the country as a member of Congress, says that you and I that are born in America, we're idiots. We don't love this country. And because she's joined and is the champion of, in my opinion, the Hate America crowd, that we're all, we don't appreciate America as much as she does. Can anybody tell me the last time she said anything good about this country?
Or that others who've had...
By the way, I'm so blessed that here you have someone who's not even 30 pointing out the hypocritical nature of our country. She must have so much life experience to be able to lecture all of us Americans.
That, like, why just be American? Why don't you be more like an American? Can continue to say that. Why can't you be more like an American? Because it used to be a very positive thing. We export American exceptionalism, the great America, the land of liberty and justice. That is, you know, if you ask anybody in walking on the side.
Can she say enough?
Of the street, somewhere in the middle of the world, they will tell you America the Great. But we don't live those values here. And so that...
You know, you can hear the smirk, the snideness. If America didn't live the values here and go above and beyond those values, madam, you wouldn't be elected Congress. You wouldn't have the freedom to denounce the country that has given you so much.
Hypocrisy is one that I'm bothered by. I want America the Great to be America the Great.
Right. So would you say the founding fathers were great? Would you say that the people that fought and died on both sides of the Civil War were great? Would you say the people that, by their choice or not by their choice, saved the world not once but twice, and perhaps may be called upon again to save the world? Save the world. That's not hyperbolic. That's not embellishment. That is fact, madam. Isn't that American exceptionalism? American exceptionalism that, because we're so compassionate and, in my opinion, misguided, we're letting just everybody run wild and free. Come on into America and we'll pay for your benefits at the expense of the people that were born here. How ignorant and disrespectful that you have this woman of limited life experience lecturing men and women that she knows best because she came to America. And I don't want America to be a hypocrite. I don't want a congressperson to rip the very country that has given her so much, as in everyone else, born here or not. Traffic and weather together. Kevin Miller in the morning. Let's get you to work safely and on time. Good morning, Dave. Thank you, Dave. But getting back to this, here we have an elected member of Congress ripping the very country that she knows best. Whatever happened to humility and gratitude? Here we have the Speaker of the House saying the president wants to make America white again. Here we have the President of the United States telling 4 congresswomen, you don't like it, go back to the country where you came from. 3 of them were born in America. 1, Omar, born in Somalia. But she's going to tell us that she appreciates this country more. I'm wondering, when did Omar ever say anything good about America? Can't say that in Minnesota. All the conservative local talk show hosts have been wiped out thanks to Obama and continuing the trend. Major companies don't like conservatives anymore. Major companies don't want to be controversial, but they'll endorse Megan Rapinoe. This is what we're up against, where you have a woman with purple hair that wears baggy shorts kicking a ball through a net, all of a sudden could be the next president of the United States, and yet she has no qualifications. I didn't know that purple hair lent itself, short purple hair, lent itself to being credible to establishing gravitas. Remember, that's what they used to say against President Bush, gravitas. But at 580-5436, 580-KIDO, well, no, Glenn Beck's coming up next. And we'll carry it on this week. We just celebrated the 4th of July. And no song sings it better than Lee Greenwood's Proud to Be an American. If it's one thing that we accomplish, is we've got to get these young people away from the Omars, away from the Tlaibs, and back to the Lee Greenwoods, loving America. Right? Loving America. Because this country has too much at stake if we fail to be the watchers on the wall, the keepers of the flame. God bless you. Appreciate Ray Amaya. Appreciate Jared. Keep the faith.